So I just wanted to go over a couple of details of the foot, and in particular the spreading out of the foot and the accessing of the midfoot. A lot of the material I'm about to talk on right now was hugely inspired from my friend David Grey, and also mixed with everything I learned in my internal martial arts and Qigong and Neigong practices over many years. So first of all, we want to look at the foot itself and the basic idea of how the foot works. So to get the tissues to open and release really needs the foot to be able to, kind of like the hand, spread out, have the toes lengthen and release, and in particular have the middle of the foot kind of separate and spread apart, as if the bones sort of started to come apart. Along with that, the foot obviously has the heel involved, and we use it in walking, obviously not manipulating stuff like our hands. So you're looking for a very particular action. It looks something like this. If I imagine this fist here to be my heel and the hand to be the midfoot and the toes, and you might need to imagine that the big toes further up like this, you have a structure that looks something like this. And most people's feet are like frozen like this and just like plod on the ground, and maybe they've got flat feet that are frozen like this and plod along on the ground, and so on and so forth. Neither of those positions are particularly bad in and of themselves, but if we're frozen in any position, there's going to be no release and no opening of the foot. What we need to work out how to do is how to roll through the foot and get this kind of articulation of all the joints that lets the foot spread out on the ground. So if you were to see it from underneath it, you would see the foot kind of, the heel would roll, there'd be some space in the joints here, and the toes would spread out. Along with this, we need a capacity to lengthen the toes and let them rest or release into the ground, so you have a very slight pressure on each of the toe pads. How that looks like when we're actually doing it with the foot and not with a fake hand model is that first of all we need to understand the rotation of the foot relative to the knee. So if we look from straight on here, and I'll just back up so you guys can see exactly what's going on. If my thigh is in this corridor and my foot is in the same corridor, then there's no rotation between the foot and the knee. However, if my thigh turns here, so the corridor is kind of going this way, and my foot's still going that way, then I've externally rotated. It's the same here. If I point the thigh forward again, the foot is turned out, right? So if I'm doing this, then I've got this action here, you see, where the foot collapses on the inside and the outside lifts up. This is not what we want, but what we do want looks very similar to this. If I then bring my foot back around to the front and roll through nicely, you see I'll do this from the side so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll still get this dropping down here as all the weight comes through the midfoot and spreads everything out, but it's not at the expense of the outside here. I keep that contact, so you can't see at the moment, but it's still spreading out in the same way, but this hasn't done that, which typically happens when the foot's externally rotated. So we need to keep the foot and the thigh in the same line. After this, for this particular drill, we need to work out how to catch the posterior chain and roll through it, roll the weight through it into the midfoot, to the front of the midfoot, but not letting the weight go into the ball of the foot or the toes, which is just a way of cueing it to corner the midfoot and force the midfoot to be used. To understand this, we need to understand the dynamics of the weight shift. If I'm rolling through the foot and I allow weight to go into the ball of the foot and the toes, I can very quickly get to this position, and I hope you can see that on camera, where the weight goes into the ball of the foot, and I've just lost the posterior chain entirely. From here, I can very easily lift up the heel. I'm very disconnected through the heel. Instead, what I want to do is actually have the weight start at the back of the heel, maintain the connection to the back of the heel, as I roll through the middle of the heel to the front of the heel and then into the midfoot there, and constantly be releasing any pressure from the ball of the foot and the toes. So I don't want to feel the ball of the foot drive into the ground. I don't want to feel the toes grip the ground, nor do I want to lift up the toes to avoid that. I want the toes to be relaxed and released. So I'm going to roll through like this and have the weight move from the heel to the front of the heel, through the midfoot, just behind the ball of the foot. To set that up, I'll show it from the front to begin with. You want to just let all your weight rest on one leg so you can lift the other leg up, and you want to let that leg rest on the ground in such a way that when I pick it up, I don't have to transition my body weight. So I don't want to drop the foot down and have weight already on it like this. I want to keep my weight on the back leg and just place the foot down in front of me in a way, it's like I'm balancing on this leg and this leg's just resting on the ground. From there, I need to make sure my thigh is in the same corridor as the foot. And all I want to do is, with my mind, trace the movement of the weight that I talked about. And with my body, I just want to bend the knee. That's it. I don't need to transition the weight. I just bend the knee, and through bending the knee, naturally the weight will roll through the heel. And I just keep bending the knee, and then naturally the weight will go into the back of the midfoot, and then the middle of the midfoot, and then the front of the midfoot. And then I just reverse that whole process, rolling back through the midfoot, into the heel, and rolling back through the heel here. Things I want to make sure I don't do. I don't want to be bending my knee, and then locking the angle of the knee and just tipping all my weight forward from then, because then I haven't actually changed that knee angle that whole time, and that just drives the weight into the ball of the foot. I can't actually get the weight out of the ball of the foot like that. I need to have the knee continuously bend if I want to roll into the midfoot. So that's really, really super crucial. The other thing I want to do is I want to be able to feel the connection to the heel the whole time. So as I'm rolling through here and I feel that starts to light up my calf, my hamstring, even my quad and my hips to whatever degree they are jammed or available. And I want to knead through that. I don't want to escape that wall where I release that pressure and I can just move so easily in and out of this, and that's just going straight into the ball of the foot and the toes and skipping the midfoot entirely. So I kind of want to map that territory by kneading into it or rolling into it. So once more, it looks like this. I start with all my weight on the back leg. I have my front foot just resting on the ground, and I just start bending the knee. And if you imagine the knee joint like this, right? All I'm doing is this perpetual opening of the knee, and at no point do I want the knee to freeze and start traveling like this where the angle stays the same. So rolling through, I just keep bending the knee. Everything else is just opening and releasing. And I let all that weight sink through to the front of the heel, and then start pouring into the midfoot and rolling through the midfoot. And then once I'm deep into the midfoot, then I just roll back, and I can keep exploring that. It's kind of like kneading dough. I just bend the knee to go forward. The back leg is not super important here. You can just leave it wherever. The important thing is that I'm bending the knee to make the action happen. Again, from the front, take care. You want this, I'll just move this leg aside so you can see what's going on. You want this corridor to remain the same. I don't want to be rolling through here and have this swing of the hip that goes out. So now my thigh is pointing this way. The thigh must be in the same corridor as the direction of the toes. As you're doing that, just open and release the toes in such a way that they just rest gently on the ground. You see, there shouldn't be any of this kind of thing, action where I lift my toes off the ground. Shouldn't be any of this kind of gripping of any of the toes. No action in the front of the foot at all. Everything is just open and released from the start and remains that way the whole way through. And I'm just going to knead in and out of that and work that kind of splaying and unsplaying action of the foot. This starts to give me a map of my midfoot and a sense of what it feels like when the weight is over the midfoot. And later in my standing practices, I want to translate that into here. So I quite like doing this to set up. I'll actually drop back into the heel and roll through the heel, almost even do it with like a straight leg, like straighten the knee, drop into the back of the heel, and then bend the knees to roll through the heel into the midfoot so that I'm above the midfoot when I start my standing. From the side, it would look something like this. I drop into the heel and then I roll through the heel by bending through the knee until I'm stacked nicely over the midfoot. And again, I don't want any clawing or grabbing or lifting of the toes. They stay completely released. From here, I can actually just work on being more precise on the midfoot and also work on this idea of like gently spreading out the toes and letting the toes release and open into the ground. One of my friends says it's like gently caressing a lover. So then you really want this idea of the toes being in contact with the ground but not being forceful on the ground. So 2 main points here. The toes are staying released and roll through the heel to find the midfoot. Work with that. I really recommend spending a lot of time with that. I've used it as a drill for many months, and it's just giving me more and more. The more the foot opens up, the more I find accessibility in the knee, in the calf, in the hamstring, in the hip that I didn't have before. And it's just like the gift that keeps on giving. So try it for yourself and let me know how you go. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to learn more or support my work, head on over to my website, craigmallet.com. You're also welcome to join my community, which can be found at community.craigmallet.com or via the menu on my main website. I generally have a number of services available. If you'd like some help, just reach out. I have a student program, I have online courses, I have workshops and private consultations, all available to any who would want it. As always, to appease the algorithm gods, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and/or share.